This will be the last garden tour video. It's gonna be a long one. I'm kind of excited to share this maybe with the general public. I've been making a lot of videos privately for myself, but let's start. So this is currently, I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 winter cold frames. So every day we are eating salads pretty much. So right now in here there's some mustards, green onion, and Swiss chard. I planted these out in August, September, and our neighbor gave us some of these mustards. She had it in her garden over here. She gave us some seedlings, so I put them in there, and it's thriving. So when it gets to minus overnights, I put on a row cover, and I'm just using some sticks and everything to keep it up. That's how they're surviving currently. We'll see how long they go. Here's the other cold frame. There's these mushrooms I haven't identified yet what they are. So I've taken a bunch of pictures. I'm going to spend some time figuring out what they are. This one isn't doing as well. Maybe it's the amount of sun coming in. I am facing, so this is south and then east. So it could be a sun thing. Still got to figure that out. But also, I don't think I planted it as heavily. These are one of the few barrels that I have. So this had a bunch of strawberries and this blueberry that I've been nursing back to health. Next year I'm going to plant it out to the future blueberry patch. So this year I covered this whole area with clover, sunflowers, and just other kind of cover crops. And then in August, September, I just sheet mulched it with cardboard and wood chips. So I just covered all that green material, sheet mulched it. I'm gonna let that kind of nice settle in and create nice rich soil that I'll put my my blueberry plant in, and then eventually it'll be kind of like 2 rows of blueberries and just intermix with other plants. We'll see what grows in there. But next year I plan this probably just to be another kind of vegetable garden, because blueberries are expensive, and I'm trying really to keep my gardening budget down until I get a little side hustle going. Asparaguses. So this is kind of like an asparagus L here. There's about 15 asparagus plants in here. These ones over here I planted from seed, and those ones are planted from a crown. So these are, so we'll see how it goes. And you see intermixed there are a strawberry plants now. Here's a little cold frame. I found this bookcase, found these storm windows, and just impromptu cold frame. So these are lettuces and arugula. Need to give it a little water, I think. But all along there, we'll see how well it grows. I put some bricks in here, you can see, to try and create some thermal mass. And when it does get minus weather, I do cover the row cover and then glass right on top. Here's the other row cover, cold frame. And this had daikon leaves, so we've been eating daikons. I think I planted them too tight, so still eating the greens. And I don't know what happened. Something came through here and really decimated the greens. I don't know if they're just kind of spent or an animal got in here, I'm not sure. But the cold frame was down when I came out this morning. So there's other different seedlings. Yeah, I definitely need to give it some water. And so yeah, you can see here I'm trying to create some thermal mass. So I'm using bricks to keep the cold frame down, and I'm using these upside down terracotta pots to kind of capture some heat, create some warm air in there, and radiantly release it. So I'm getting some new seedlings coming up. Again, these are mustards, kales, and I planted down some icicle radishes, so they're coming up nicely. On the back of it, so obviously that's a temporary kind of winter situation, and then I'll just plant that out again in the springtime. In here I replanted a bunch of strawberries, so there's probably, I think, like 20 strawberries that I just took from there, put them over here, and then we'll see. And then I just covered it up with leaves as a nice little warm blanket. These were Maximilian sunflowers that come up. I'm leaving the stalks up, and there's just seeds up there. Hopefully they spread out. This area is still kind of under development. I am proud though of this 1-year-old fig tree that's already covered up now. But I put a bed of leaves, some plastic, and then burlap, and then just one of leaf bags, and with a tomato cage as kind of like the support there. I still need to come back and wrap it. I got my twine over here, so I just got to wrap it and secure it against the fence. This is just storage, extra material that I'm going to use in the house, wood material that I've been collecting. Over here, kind of like my nursery pots. So there's black walnuts that I collected. I'll probably just scatter those throughout the city. Or, shh, I didn't say that. This is herbs that I had at the front of the house. I brought it to the front. So there is some oregano, there's some rosemary. So eventually this will just kind of populate with a bunch of herbs. And then eventually I'll be able to scatter them throughout the garden. There is a 1 hascap, 2 hascap, and then a couple of other asparagus plants. In here are seeds that I collected. So there's service berries right here, and then there's peaches or apples. I have a label in here, but I covered it up with because I noticed squirrels coming in and digging up, so I just covered them up with all this. Same thing in here. There's some apples. There's apples and peaches pits in here and seeds. Actually, I have it right there. Plum and another label. So anyways, plums. So hopefully they'll come up, and I'll be able to nurse them to health. So this is some of my other beds that don't have yet plans for them, but they're here. They're just no dig beds in here. This is kind of my garlic. There's 71 garlic cloves in here, and there's about another 10 or so down there in the bottom part of my food forest. But the real star of the show, I think, is the different composting systems that I'm playing with. So this is leaves, bags of leaves. I think 6 bags of leaves. Right currently it's about 4 feet tall by, let's say, 222, and it's actually sitting on existing compost that I didn't end up using this year. So I took some of that compost out and then mixed it in as I layered up the leaves. But I also was starting a hot compost pile down there, which I'll come over in a second, and I just took that hot compost pile and then just added layers of leaves, hot compost, and fungal or finished compost, which is kind of fungal. And then in the core, I put a big wad of wine cap mushroom spawn from my patch that I have down there. So we'll see how this develops over the winter time. In here is a more enclosed, looking to do leaf mold in here. So again, this is a couple bags of leaves in here in this container that I found on the side of the road. I was using it as a water harvester, but it had some holes, so it failed at that. But in here, it's just more leaves in a more anaerobic environment. And I just mixed in some finished compost that already had a lot of mycelium. So I'm hoping the mycelium in here will break these down over the winter time, and then just the black container will create a warm environment. And you can see I covered the lid in plastic just to keep any water out. We'll see how that works out. But I'm really hoping that this is finished leaf mold come springtime. This is just long tree branches that I've collected. I've been using them as trellises this past year, so they're just kind of storage there for next year. Down below here is my food. Everything's my food forest, but here is basically just a dedicated kind of food forest eventually. So you can see this is now year 3 of the center area that I've now raised up. So down below was sheet mulched, and then wood chips and just other biomass material. And then finally this past year I bought 2 yards of triple mix that I used for the front of the beds. I'll show you in a second. I'll go there. But any of that leftover remainder triple mix I kind of layered on top of here. So this is good. This coming year, I don't know. It's just going to be annuals, but eventually this will become a perennial trees and system. So some of those seeds that I've started up there will come in here, and then we'll see how they work out. That's an existing pear tree. I've been kind of trimming. Eventually, I'm going to graft onto it. And these are 2 other composting experiments that I got going on. So this is leftover wood chips from my chip drop. This was the 3rd chip drop I received this past year. The last one was, I think, around 12 yards of wood chips. So that was quite the ordeal to manage that, but you'll see what I did with that at the front. But any remainder, I piled it up in here, grabbed some spent native soil that I used for a raised bed that I forgot to water, and then I mixed it in with, again, another wad of wine cap spawn, so you can see all the mass in here. This has actually grown quite a bit from 1 month alone. So this will be kind of long-term nutrition that eventually I'll spread throughout the garden, but I'm quite happy so far. So I'll probably be able to harvest wine caps from here and continue building soil. And I'm planning to maybe put a couple potatoes in here and grow potatoes in this too come springtime. So I just have it covered up in here. It's just a box of pallets that I made. And over here, this is about 20 bags of leaves that I've collected. So I use this construction fencing that I found, made a big box. In the middle of it, in the core, I put garbage bin with holes, and this is actually where I'm putting my food scraps in the wintertime, bokashi food scraps, or whatever, just regular food scraps. I don't have any bokashi brand at the moment. I will make it over the wintertime. So the idea here is I put food scraps in there, and then I grab a couple handful of leaves from the insulated layer, obviously. So, and then I just kind of mix that and fill it up over the wintertime. And I think this should last me the wintertime. It didn't, because I put in a bunch of coffee grounds in here. So I had to improvise, take this and dump it to that new system over there. But the idea here is this is sitting at roughly the center of the leaf mass. The leaf mass is acting as an insulator to keep it as hot as possible over the wintertime. Along the fence line here, so there's a nice path that goes in here around the big center ring. What I'm planning to do here along the fence is to create a bean trellis, a very long bean trellis along the side. So again, this is a raised bed that I created along the fence. On the back of it is landscaping fabric that's holding the soil in place. And then I'll just plant it out with beans, and probably over there I put some strawberries, so the strawberries should run along here. But I'm going to build a tall trellis here to have the beans climb up and give us some more privacy from the busy street here. But I'm going to see if I can do like a semi-arch here, so when you walk under, you can harvest the beans from above, and you have a nice little area to kind of hide. I have a 2-year-old son that I think he's going to love playing back down here as a little hiding spot for him under the wall of beans. This is my wine cap patch all along here. I got maybe about 10 wine caps this fall, so it's an improvement. But I layered on shredded paper and bags of leaves, and then the actual leaves. So just building the carbon source in here. Another bed in here that eventually again will be a perennial system, but it's just annuals at the moment. And down below here I have walking onions. Somewhere in here, right here, is my sumac tree that I planted from seed. I put like 50 seeds in here, and only one sumac has come up. So maybe there more come up in here, but I really love the look of sumac. So I'm happy it's here. It's on the south side, so it's gonna cast some shade over here. So it'll be kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna walk back up and take you to the front of the house. Okay, now we're at the front of the house. So the backyard leads down there a whole path, and then down along here is a shared area with my neighbor. But I heavily mulched my side So when the wood chip pile, every time I got a chip drop, they would put it down over here. So this whole area has just been smothered with wood chips. But the goal in here is to take eventually this downspout, run a PVC pipe down below here to passively irrigate this area. So it still need to design it out. But this coming year, I'm probably just going to do a nice big row of sunflowers and squash plants, pumpkins. Pretty much do a Three Sisters guild all along here. It's going to be pretty sweet, I think. And eventually, you know, I'll share hopefully those pumpkins and squashes with the neighbors. So I did the same kind of thing on the municipal side, so I can share. That's mulch. This past year I had sunflowers here. It was a great hit, everyone loved it. And then I talked to my neighbor, and I'm going to redo the same thing over here. I just planted out 20 tulips in this shared area here, so it's going to be nice. But the real star is going to be my front garden beds. So they are 3 feet by 16 feet, and I've just filled them up with yard waste that I've collected. And then the top 6 inches is triple mix. It's triple mix. And then just I did shredded leaves along the top there, so they should break down nicely. And I just have it covered up with landscape fabric. I am trialing something over here where I've gone to Starbucks and I've collected coffee grounds. And so eventually I'll keep going, but I've mixed the top layer of leaves with coffee grounds. So I'm hoping by the springtime, this will be a nice humus that I can just completely plant into while still have the triple mix down below here. You can see there's a nice fluffy triple mix. So we'll see how that works out. I'm probably going to do just the one bed. So I've done almost half the bed with coffee grounds. Still got to go to Starbucks and collect more coffee grounds to fill the rest of it. So kind of like experiment to see how it kind of works out, where I'll do in situ composting top layer, and then over here all the compost I'm building in the back I'll spread on this one. We'll see what kind of works out better. And then there's a nice path goes into the front of the house, and then this will be another perennial kind of system here. I already have lemon balm, but there'll be kind of lemon balm and some other herbs. And so basically this whole front area is going to be kind of like the kitchen garden. So you come up to the front and you collect your food, our food. Instead of going out and driving out to the grocery, you just walk out to the front and you have your vegetables. So I want to get some, like, I'm going to create some trellis systems to play with the shading. So I'll be able to use those tall plants to shade out the smaller kind of greens and more heat sensitive crops. I'm probably going to buy some determinate tomatoes. I have a bunch of tomato cages that someone gave me, so I'll be able to put a couple determinate tomatoes in here and see how that goes, so I don't have to manage the big vines. I'll keep the big vines for the back. And that's it.